very much, Michal, for this very generous introduction. And I'm sorry for my voice. I think my audience is still experimenting with aircon. So, you can leave that. So, right. So, again, thank you very much for coming over from all over the world. I will try to do today something I've been thinking for a while. It's based on my broad understanding of what I do as an anthropologist and my experience, but also current research project I'm doing, which is on transnational. So, in a sense, I will give you a little bit of my personal and academic reminder of what anthropologists actually do and why, and then I'll talk something that, or briefly talk about something that anthropologists are not very good at. So, global macro scale outlook on the global migration flows in the future, and I'll try to connect it with.
Could you please speak near the microphone?
So, yeah, so I'll talk about how that connects with the topic, and then I'll talk a little bit about my experiences with foreigners and what do they tell me, and by definition, what they tell us. And I'll finish with, and these are kind of sketchy ideas at some point, but I hope might give you food for thought and also some stimuli for questions. So, in essence, I mean, anthropologists are kind of quite relaxed about the fact that this reminds us that it's science whose development is marked less by perfection of consensus. So we might disagree on a lot of things, but it's more about the refinement of debate and also the precision with which, as Gertz nice to put it, we vex each other intellectually, ethically too. Because ethnography, so what anthropologists produce, can only judge ex post, so you cannot anticipate what's going to come out of your research yet, really. They like poems and so you cannot, they can be only judge ex post. And from all its weakness and strength, as Gertz says, they actually enable both an epistemological and intellectual progress and also because they enable conversations across the religion, class, gender, language, and that has grown progressively in the years. So in essence, and this is the essence of anthropological fieldwork, as Garapich says, is the dialectic of confrontation. So, whoever we talk to, whatever field we immerse ourselves into, it has an element of confrontation, dialogue, also of some tension, whether ethical, it's a dialectic confrontation in a particular time and place where individuals and groups interpreting the world through a symbolic system that is often different from ours. And in essence, and as another anthropologist I use a lot, reminds us that what it should be and always, very often is, in a natural path to all other social science branches, because it always adds the phenomenology of lived experience by explaining how people understand and describe why they do what they do. And it's not only a question for people or societies, but also us scholars. And this is the kind of question by default we should ask ourselves, as scholars, why do we do what we do? Not just because we are bad at other things, or we know better being lawyers or bankers and scholars is the next thing, but there's some deeper ethical and moral question. So in essence, and this is how I understand, we're just asking big questions to people, whether they're small, big, or walks of life. And it's the ability to connect or tend to connect the mindless human experience, human meaning making, with macrostructural determinants and dimensions of what we see in the connected world. So It by definition also means taking their claims, whatever these things, whatever ideas they produce, taking them seriously and taking them at face value. It means anthropological fieldwork, at least how I see it, is the ability to attempt to understanding other people, what, why they do what they do, but it constantly, it's a constant reminder that empirically this experience is valid and crucially ethically necessary. And especially when it comes to that dialectical confrontation or ethnographic encounter, which allows us, let's say, enables conversation across. So again, I repeat myself here that it means constant self-reflection and a healthy dose of so the question why I do what I do, what kind of empirical instrument I become in order to understand microscale human systems with macro structural forces that balance our life. So the big things, global migrations. So my presentation has actually got divided into 4 parts, you'll notice. And the second part is something that will be my colleague Mr. Girosti will be kind of looking with skepticism, because out of big numbers, big process and the future too, which is another college. But this is what most scholars do. They try to predict what's going to happen to us in the next decades or so. So by projections, migrations internationally, globally are going to rise. There's a very consensus. The debate is the dynamics, speed, directions, and the setup. So, and it's pretty also understandable and clear for everyone. From scientists that there are powerful triggers, powerful push forces, both, listed here, it's uneven development, aging populations in the northern Europe societies, aging populations is a kind of short term really for all the consequences of that process. So, labor shortages, pension crisis, healthcare, of course, massive There's a couple of population growth in the south, of course, and crucially urbanization of the population. And the biggie, which I'm going to talk about later, but very, very important, which is the most important growing global warming. So just to give you a little picture here, we have the aging population graph on the left and the right population growth. So you can see here, obviously in 2040, for example, Japan, more than 35% people over 65. US, as you can see, very low numbers, not for other reasons. So we took in a third of the population over 65. Now, this is probably the population growth itself, 1.4 billion people in the next 50 years. This is much more than India, all coming from the world. So, and this is where it can happen. And crucially, overpopulation growth will happen in the coming years. So urbanization and population growth are two reinforcing each other processes. And this is what how this is where growth will be centered in. And it's scholars or demographers and planners do that very often. They try to guess what was going to be the biggest cities in this century. And at the moment, there's like I think Tokyo, Delhi, Mumbai, or Peru or something. Anyone knows what at the end of this century? Which cities? No? It's basically Lagos, Kinshasa, and Dar es Salaam. Around 90, 100 million each. So it's a massive scale, but bear in mind this map, because of this map, which shows the uninhabitable zones at 2070. So basically, times watching kind of retiring or the end of their working lives. So in essence, this is what shows. This is what coming. This is what base. This is a prediction based on actually on average temperature rise to 2%. This is a moderate scenario because there are darker scenarios going to rise average 4%. Sorry, 40%. Such as this makes this red zone, which is uninhabitable, growing up to the third. So even reaching. When I say uninhabitable, it really is what it means. If we can't basically get you to stay outside for more than 2 hours. Forget about farming, transport, set up of the cities, forget about this. It's dead. Nobody's going to survive for longer than a few hours. So this is something that I've been thinking about and mostly inspired by kind of this book, hugely influential book, looking at migration in global warming. She predicts, it's not a prediction, but it's some of the response to this process. So all this population boom coupled with this equals up to 3 billion equals a third of the population. Have to move because it will be dead into state. And she asked the final question, Michal. So what some of this means that we need to radically rethink what are national borders? What is the current set of nations? Because with up to 3 billion people significantly displaced in this century, we are heading into big changes in the world as well. IOM also runs this creative scenarios. This is actually based on their predictions for migration and migration policies and how state are going to react by mid-century. But never mind, this one, let's creatively think about this in other ways. Essentially, what this massive migration will trigger, IOM set 4 scenarios. One is the so-called pacification. So basically, Trump war on steroids, right? So borders rise. There's a massive investment in civilizations. Navy shoots every boat on the sea with people in it. So basically, nation state retreats and entrench themselves in a typified dystopian world of frontiers, anchors, for instance. Unlikely. I mean, I think human migration history shows that there's no wall people can jump over or scale or dig under. But the second scenario is based on the children of men, a total collapse of civilization, law and order, chaos, anarchy, nation state collapse. Essentially, they cannot control population flows and migration, so everybody basically it's a but of course, that's all wrong. But never mind. The key takeaway here is that there's no way. So people retreat in either small niches or they disperse. Those scenarios are much more optimistic one. I mean, this is not really it's based on that kind of H.G. Wells, which, as you might remember, it's kind of is a calamity at that time resurrects itself to a more just and fair and humane system. Fourth scenario, takes over machines, but there's machines in the automatic works in the sense that they are there's less need for working population. I'm not here to judge all the scenarios. The thing is that I'm very sketchy on making these scenarios about the so bear in mind all the scenarios with the global warming. what the Finns actually argues is that we are relatively thinking about migrations and essentially because we are biologically hardwired to migrate, to seek new niches, just in our DNA, the evolution feature. We have to invest, so we have to adapt. And climate change was always. It's normal practice venture that. So so this brings us back to the issue: what makes it work? Who decides that? What extent and when and how immigration became this massive issue, investment funds or stakes put into keeping people out or selecting them, etc. Because if you look at it historically, until mid-20th century, actually, the main problem of the state, especially in the industrialized 19th century, the main problem of the state was actually the lack of workforce. But there was, a concern of the state and people believe rather. So this brings us to the far right. And I deliberately use a broad frame of far right. It's not broadly defined whether it's medical or extreme as an ideological framework revolving around nativism, xenophobia, racism. The important thing is that from its beginning, it usually constructed as an ideological movement. From its beginning, immigration was a very important phenomenon and aspect of social life. The far right finds itself against. So it wasn't a threat or a symptom of decay or pollution to society. So in one sense, immigration essentially produced people. It's been written a lot about this. These are articles, sedentary metaphysics of nationalism, or biologization of society, or in terms of what the nation is. Although, of course, fiction, myth, ideology, lies, etc. We know this, yes, but still a pretty powerful one. So if you look at any media in the world, particularly Anglo-Saxon, particularly English media, I mean, immigration is constantly, decades present as a danger, as existential authority we need to fix. And obviously, far-right parties were very keen to capitalize on that. And very often, you see, these are the result of the last elections in the European Parliament. A biggest win for far-right parties will be understood. I mean, still far from it, of course, but nevertheless, all of these parties are actually very different. They're very sometimes unrealistic in some areas. But what they do unite on is something which rhetoric, politics, ideas, and again, presenting it as an existential principle. Similar in a way, although with its own distinct features, situation in the US, and obviously Trump urbanization and education. So this is the community story in the US. But I mean, there is talk and scholarship around the far right, and this is more broadly, as also if you want to self. And if you look at Modi's policies and his sponsoring of Hindu kind of basically far right racing mobs that organize riots against Muslims. Or if you look at the plight of Rohingya in Myanmar, or Uyghurs, right? I mean, in China, and putting people, particularly in group, in camps to re-educate them, something far right, historically. So, it's about a Western white developer. So, in essence, the common denominator is the environmental discourse. And but the interesting thing is that the more complex immigration becomes, the more diverse societies become. Because it's a relational nature with immigration also evolves, also changes, also moves in its appeal, in its generated support and the vote. So that's why, and this is steering towards stuff we do at the moment, is to look at how minorities and diasporas, how they respond, how they engage with politics. So obviously, a lot of examples. And I guess, I mean, American colleagues here would be familiar with, and Nico Backer was spending time for he's representing very often as this non-white American student, non-standard white supremacist, although he's not, he claims that. But there are a lot of examples like recent rebranding of the National Front, which is called now so German and legacy, the French government's dynasty. Jordan Borel is a son of Italian immigrant, but also has some background. And there are other examples in Britain where we had for a while most diverse government in UK history, most far right is the British voices and also government. But Ron DeSantis is also another examples. Funny enough, I would talk about Ron DeSantis these days, but still players in the ago. And so as an example of tokenism, so taking minorities, far right politicians as this kind of example of we are okay, we still have. So they call it the elite minority gatekeepers, which actually reproduces. And historically, it's not a new thing, because historically, migrants did engage, where diasporas were engaged in some kind of foreign politics. Broadly, I mean, Italian diaspora and its relationship with Mussolini fascism is one example, but I think that's the influence of politics of German Nazis who escaped after the Second World War. It's their influence on countries like Chile or Argentina. So on different scale and different context, Ukrainian poll serves in the US and Canada is one other example. I think the takeaway from this is that racialized white supremacist violence can be maintained and when contained also through immigration, not just selfish. And the growth of human dynamics, complexity equals more complex far-right setup and discourses. More nuanced, more adaptive, more also virus sometimes, but definitely more appealing to wider citizen populations. And my question now is, what are these? And who produces? And this is what I want. And this is a question of course, what do we do? How do we watch tweets and online stuff that produced by our activists? We actually engage in that confrontational or mundane scientific empirical encounter with someone who's different about us and like we all different. And there is a huge tradition of doing that within the far right, with research on far right in America and Europe. I mean, obviously, the government needs to wrote a fantastic book about women and there's a growing recognition. It's a kind of recent thing as well. I mean, it was the last decade or so, 8 to 7 years. Robert was an American solicitor, a fantastic book. And, he said that witnesses that the first time he presented with his book, they were really very concerned. I mean, some scholars like saying, what's the agenda here? Who are you actually talking to? Who else? I mean, what is doing this? So it's not an obvious thing to do. But obviously there are also other companies like what great. This is a more kind of social psychology, which you might have done, but still, I say worth reading because Raphael actually went out and had the courage, also as a Jew, American Jew, to go on neo-Nazi rallies in the US and engage in government. So this is what I do. And the English methodology of it is complex, it's also interesting. There are volumes, books, just ethics and methods of research required. So this is what I do. The key thing is slightly taking a step back from dominant external analysis of the far right, exploring various milieux, so spaces where they meet, what they do, on mundane basis as well. And so I want to think that about and obviously very amount of online. But the ritualistic symbolic sense is very important. So what other spaces that can have this?
Around 15 minutes.
Actually, the key driver is that the people on the extreme far right or far right are, it's as Hillary Clinton reminds us here in the first quote, is that they're not kind of some pathological views that are separate from society. On the contrary, they're just a radical version of mainstream thinking, or especially mainstream understanding of certain symbols or ritual spaces. So to picture them as white racist supremacists that are just bold and bulky and masculine and violent. There's a danger of stereotyping here, which makes us ethically maybe complacent and maybe ethically clean, etc. But it doesn't really advance science and empirical understanding. So in essence, I'm doing so you don't have to. So what are these stories I hear? And what do they tell me? And by today, I mean, people, I'm not talking about the representative of sidewalk, which is not worry. I mean, if you first time probably, after this lecture, I probably won't go out and crack and be afraid of some, this is a very small number of people. I will be like interviews were in the 40, but people I will talk now, handful, dozen, 15 writers, right? Not overall numbers are not important. It's the views of parallels as well, which is important. So what do they tell me? And I think, among other things, I want to focus on violence. I conducted in my life maybe around 500 interviews, so meeting real people in person, on top of that focus group surveys, etc. So I think I have a very good experience in all of the research, but I have never had so much about beatings, basically, non-gun violence, rarely, but actually football stadium, hooligans, violence, at gigs, at concerts, racially motivated violence, also keeping someone up, and or among himself. The famous exactly, so the commission mentioned basically push-ups, proposing plans, arranging a fight in the park, outside organized authorities, consensual. There are, there used to be, but there are Facebook pages where people organize themselves. These are not disorganized around the world. Don't get the wrong message. These are highly organized events that people set up rules of engagements, nice, and they fight, they keep themselves up to the top. And then rarely, but yes. So a lot of them. I hear a lot of stories which are full of violence. There is also anticipating violence or future conflicts, wars, anticipating that something is around the horizon. These are stories of male violence, so adrenaline rush, okay, suffering, stitches, conflict, etc. But also death of brotherhood, camaraderie. We're in this together. And it's about being involved. And violence very often comes up with addiction as something that nothing matches violence. And in its addictive obviously it's all about, or a lot about male insecurities when it comes to changing violence. And it needs to absorb certain or enhance the own sense of agency for your body. So body imagery, but also tattoos and doing stuff with your male body. It's very much obviously violence is deep into so that's why I would risk saying that in this group immigrants are not the main enemy. Women, feminists, LGBTQ, yes. And so this is something I've been very involved with or actually about recently. It's a way to explain the world as a full of violence. And the symbolism counts a lot. Symbolism, so preparation for violence. And this is where I mean my graphical encounter, which was pretty shocking for me, but also quite intellectually stimulating. Because I never saw a swastika on a pole, unfortunately. It's still a lot of thinking, a lot of emotion. But I mean, after all, Poland, Krakow, all in areas, Auschwitz is very close. You got so-called human side networks. A lot of people died, and under the swastika. So how come a Polish man tattoos himself with swastika? And I truly didn't have an answer. I was shocked. It was a combination of the poor, but also I and my family had a share of people killed during the Second World War. So it's obviously also kind of also a fascination. Why matter? And there are a lot of explanations, and we come to personal those about tattoos changed, they adapted, etc. But this is the guy. That's a picture of my respondent actually. So I'm going to talk about this story, but another one told me a very simple story about the story of the first child in prison. Basically, he was engaged in criminal networks, so ended up in prison very often, and in prison in Poland. And so this first night or first morning when he goes to a new place, new prison, in the shower, it's a moment where you have to obviously certain who's the other people there, danger, threats. You can imagine the tension in that shower going on. So the guy with a tattoo on his chest or on his belly or whatever is sending a message to other people. I'm in balance. I'm breaking a lot of taboos here. I'm involved with a swastika. In a scale of shock, I'm not sure how. Is there a further motion into it? So the first child in prison story is a story that is actually acts as a weapon, as a message that look at me, I'm really a recollection, pretty much, pretty functional too, I would say. I think the role of violence in gaining prestige is very important. There's a quote of mine, one of my respondents here in UK, a Polish, still pretty nasty Nazi, who took part in demonstrations, in counter demonstrations after the Vienna democracy. And he kind of, there's a narrative here, he says that other English activists actually knew about these facts. And yeah, they just heard about Leopold, so right, let's do it. And he had a revelation, and he basically was very happy. He felt integrated, he felt accepted in that. So this, for example, the picture on the right is the network of Jews in the UK, pretty active a few years ago, still around and waiting for their time. Stories of violence have a different canons as well, depending on lifetime. So past, present, and disciplinary also. But also there are stories I hear about violence that is difficult to bear. We talked to a guy, for example, next to having received with thoughts because he did some paper. Another guy, he was fine with using his name, so I'm going to, this is real. So he said to that, he was a very violent man, he was a born Christian, and he gives that testimony which amounts to basically a difficult thing. But just want to help people usually we wonder how these far out people, extreme far right people, how they understand also how they embed themselves in the UK, in London, in the context of it. So this was one, for example, is an interesting story where he arrives from a small town to London and he's shocked. Basically, for the first time, he has to control himself from the inflicting violence of someone. So he kind of has a very problem, but he can't explain himself. He comes from a culture and little town in Poland where someone from Poland was a threat, and he was used to a bit like Australia. So I can say, well, I couldn't do that. I just couldn't have to work with them. Others are more kind of interesting and nuanced perception. Again, this first respondent talks about his shop where, he has to go to an off license in London and buy a car or a Pepsi from a Salvation seller, and he kind of express articulate his race and hate. And then he's shocked that the other English far right figures are okay. So later, maybe he didn't understand that's what it is. And then the second book is really interesting. What it says, basically, the guy talks about his friend in Poland tell him that how can you live in this much and to, buy drink from someone who basically interact with difference. And he says, well, this is actually different, but if this is what makes in his narrative, he actually says that this is what makes true racism and true white supremacy, so that he can survive in that diverse society. And in essence, what would you say? You might not like it, you might not tolerate it, but push it. I don't want us to judge to what extent he's ready for violence. This particular individual at the end, he's kind of he described himself as though he had his battles, he's kind of still active, especially online. I'm not sure whether he'll be ready for active violence. I don't know. So what these stories are, essentially, and that's why I remind us, all stories are morality. All stories tell us about how people legitimize violence, difficult children. Now they deal with that later on. But these stories are deeply social, not because they are involved me as well, but they constitute a mundane society. So in essence, even if someone with very drastic differences from mine wishes to talk to me, this story an act of storytelling contains society. How they talking about myself, but I mean, come on, if I were starting to talk to people only or people who are alive, I don't know, I'll be very lonely quickly, or we'll talk to my dogs. So, what it means really for violence and extremism? I think the men in my ethnographic encounters, violence essentially have a black and white, which is there, and you have to know. You cannot pretend that you're going to live in peace. You have to be physically, mentally, personally, so you have to constantly. And particularly violence, it requires training. So your body, your mind. This is what, for example, my reading of online hate is that it keeps the water boiling, but not to the extent that it's overboiling. And ideology, meanings, the kind of symbolism, etc., comes actually after the tool that legitimize violence. It gives meaning. Ideology is first. And violence, remember, violence among men is both traumatic but also imperative. There's nothing like being in a war at the end of the day. And I think literature is full of stories and veteran accounts, war memoirs about the effect of violence as a man. And now, of course, nothing matches like a good memoir and reportage. And three codes of these rumor wars is an incredibly powerful book about unique emotion created violence among men. And hence, when we see MMA or mixed martial arts flourishing, or I said those boxing clubs, but also historical reconstruction, of history, of Hitler, war, with Second World War, etc., symbolism, commemoration events, it's all comes to one thing: ideologization of violence and warfare. So, my conclusions. Am I cut off?
2-3 minutes.
So, okay. Global patterns of migration change, in my view, so does the violence, so does the response, so does the kind of ideological and intellectual response to that from people who are who basically resent change and challenge resentment into continuation. So the position of migration will become more nuanced, complex, also with technological advance. But I think we have to be ready to be out of that dual, anti-immigrant, all right, setup. Currently, climate, of course, that forces whiteness to reveal itself. Because whiteness has a privilege to the claim to be invisible, right? There was a law, and it's no longer like that. I mean, whiteness is a political tool. It's going to be with us more and more. And that's why we see that in the past, increasingly, I would say, increasingly violence and hate will be directed with women, feminists, LGBTQ, plus also religious, other religious minorities, but not necessarily, I mean, very interesting to look at relation Islam, it's not as big as we would thought, but in moving to another area of the world, relationship between the far right situation in Gaza is more complex, more interesting to explore. So I wouldn't throw religion too much, to be honest. So the more diverse societies, the more picture will become strange, difficult to understand, because the blue articles and the bottom line is that appeals to men to violence. That violence, real, physical violence, symbolic, ritualistic, anticipatory, performative. This goes as well. And it's linked, and the result of normatization, it's important to, and it's always that the condition for the reproduction of that normalization of masculinity will become, I guess, more accepted, more pronounced, and more productive. That performative socialities where men have to fight violently in order to have what they want will drive them to turn and amplify. And it's interesting to view it also through a prism of fusion with the social governance and neoliberal policies. So this is what kind of makes it so appealing for the reformers. Very pro-government, pro government, and also white supremacy. But look at also the fusion with the state violence in terms of institutional migration. So the violence in the form of increasing borders, fencing, armies, navies, controlling local people. Fusion of these three would probably clear in its power and its impact when it comes to global warming and what's coming from. Because some of the mass migration from the north is coming and it's big and we have to be ready. And I think the first step of OECS and PTI into that we need to deepen our migration and we can have a solution very quickly. Otherwise, we are on the road to scenario the other scenario which, as you remember, is pretty great. And on that note, thank you very much.
Very much, Michal, for this fascinating talk. Since I see Michal on almost daily basis, debates, chats, and questions about the presentation, I'm not going to be selfish. I'm just going to send to you, the audience, and please, if you have questions, then raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you.
Thank you for this presentation, and more importantly, thank you for the work you do. This is extraordinary, and like they say, somebody has to do it, and you're doing it. I also thank you for that very optimistic view of the future as it relates to global warming. We're all going to go home and have nightmares, miserable from it. But take that same construct you put there, place your data and your research into it on the far right. Tell me, how far does that go? Can you use your data and your research to say that far right can go just so far, and then that leads to immediate destruction and change to our societal fabric? We talk about these types of policies, politics, as if they're limited, as far right, as far left, and it ends, but it doesn't. And I'm wondering how much you can use the work you're doing to help us and governments predict that. Can we go too far with this? And does the string on the guitar get tightened so much that it eventually breaks? Again, great work, very important work. Thank you for doing it.
I think we can go question and answer like yesterday.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, I trust. I have to also give credit to my team, Rafa and which she's not here. She's not there, and she also speak to our respondents. So I think going to your, it's really a comment and also a hope there. The limits are. I have to be even more pessimistic here, but because the dynamic of the extreme is that there's always someone who outbid the previous person. So if you have an extremist in a circle and they kind of debate ideas, there will be always someone who say it will be more outrageous than the others, and it's a spiral that obviously leads to violence and leads to horrible things. I think where my thinking about violence goes is that, in a way, because of the societal nature among men, there is an element of self-constraint. And I say this very carefully because these guys are not, they like to fight. However, at the same time, they, in communal setting, in a group, in a demo, in a manifestation, there is an internal dynamic that they refrain from maybe violence which is too deadly. Obviously, I'm talking about the specific people at every time, so no guns, for example. And demos which are usually, there's a lot of barking, of shouts, some fist fights, but no guns. And I suspect if we throw guns in there, doesn't work. And I think you have the answer in terms of the question whether what we can learn. And I know this for American colleagues here, it's a bad answer because you can guns are part of that world in the US. So I think the the small lesson, if I ever be able to tell someone in the government, would be that obviously instead of fighting violence, you need to channel it into basically or channel or capitalize in a more and there are positive stories around, for example, the emergence of sports, whether it's boxing or MMA, etc., which I know these are not stuff. I would never go to a match. They look horrible, but nevertheless, for some of these people, they have an outlet, and without the ideology. At the same time, there are obviously participating in the far right organize itself. Yes, but there are a lot of examples showing that there are also the organization process. So, I don't answer your question, but I'll be glad to discuss it.
Hi, I feel bad. I'm also from New York, US, but thank you so much for your talk. I kind of have two questions in one about assumptions. One, in the US, especially, a lot of the far right is posed as fascist, kind of just unthinkingly. And I wonder from your perspective if there's problems with that, of calling our far right movements or any kind of, because it's very nuanced, a lot of different groups. Some are just straight accelerationists, some are neo-fascists, fascists, eco-fascists, etc. But are there problems with just grouping them all together across the list, like US and Europe, as neo-fascist movements? Second is, do you see some of this as obviously scapegoating immigrants for other problems that are really just problems of capitalism, in terms of lack of economic opportunities, especially for men, with not attending universities, alienation, etc.
I'm glad New York is listening. So I would say yes, I agree with that. We use far right in a very broad, it's a very relative strokes. And maybe too general. I agree this wasn't very precise. I should have spent a little bit of time eliminating all the fragmentations, and which is very important because it kind of answers the question of this very often liberals and the politicians ask themselves, is the far right able to unite to extend of presenting a unified front? And the European Parliament is a good example because the Parliament was always there. It doesn't, they weren't able to communicate this. There are so strong ideological differences and also hate among each other because to get a Hungarian nationalist to a Slovakian nationalist, realize, I mean, there are historical problems here. So the fragmentation is important, and the people we talk to are also find very often resentful to each other. They hate each other. So for example, they would call, well, no, he's a fascist. I'm a neo-Nazi. So, or and vice versa. And in that sense, knowing exactly what they mean by what's different between fascist and neo-Nazi is important. I mean, it's important to remember to be able to distinguish that in their own eyes. So, in this example, for example, in us, correspondence is really a admiration for the third right. It's a admiration for Hitler. And it's kind of also slightly different from the US context, I would say. But and I recently, I mean, Butler's book is brilliant in that because he, I mean, the skinhead and white supremacy movement in the US is like a, you know, it's a microcosm of hundreds and hundreds of different groups that very often spend a lot of energy on fighting greatly unified front. So in that sense, I would say it is a I wouldn't say essential, but it is a very clear feature of broadly understood parliament that is internally fragmented and disorganized, unable to produce maybe I hope, but unable to produce something akin to Nazi Party in Germany in the 30s. But maybe this is me possibly optimistic. This is not maybe the case. Well, your second question, absolutely right. Yes, this is exactly what also it's about in terms of shortening the labor pool and men basically feeling threatened in their lost privileges, in their prestige, in their masculinity, etc. So the men we talk to are very often self-employed, they builders, they laborers, so very strongly putting a value on man's work. Yeah, big hands, not just muscle fighting each other, but work. And in essence, their relationship, for example, with women of success is very, very new, it's very interesting here, because they feel threatened. At the same time, their patriarchal mindset goes, okay, we are still, better because because, and this is what violence, and unfortunately, this is what violence is directed as well. I mean, against women, against girls, domestic violence. Yes, but you're absolutely right in your second question. This is the root of the
question here, and then I think in the other corner of the room.
Hi, I'm Miriam, doing a PhD in anthropology at the University of Barcelona. My work is actually on radical left activists, so basically their anti-fascist counterpart. I was wondering, and you partially anticipated my question when you were talking about the MMA clubs, because in Italy we have this phenomenon where I come from, where many radical left activists created anti-racist gyms because the gyms were filled with fascist or radical right, far right activists, so that they had to create their own separate spaces to go and train. And part of this training sometimes is perceived, well, of course, in the radical left, there's not this, the relationship with violence is not the same. There's not this excitement about violence as much as we could find in this situation. But yeah, those places, those training places are also perceived sometimes as like places in which the preparation for a potential confrontation with the radical right counterpart can be ritualized. So I was wondering if you observed something similar in your research.
Thank you. Brilliant question. I think, am I wrong to say, I'm not sure, just that Poland, in Polish raised anti-fascist movement hasn't such traditions as Italians do. To some extent, maybe, but it's you have to dig deep in the history, and for example, I don't know, say pre-war Jewish sports arena was very active and a very strong anti-fascist movement. But unfortunately, the tradition is lost. I'm sure there are some left anti-fascist podcasts in Warsaw. Okay, sorry, I mentioned something about this local clubs here. Yes, yeah, but as far as I know, Italy nowhere near the intentions. So what we in our research, what we focus on the ritual space around landscape, so commemoration events, historical events. There are a lot of visual memorials in the UK because there were World War 100,000 veterans, soldiers, white and men. Second World War, that was the times, and they created a huge infrastructure museums, foundations, citations, commemorations, monuments, cemeteries. So perfect ritual spaces for and we kind of focusing on these aspects, which are perfect for ritualized space of organization, of symbols, but also making a claim to land. It's kind of suddenly becomes Polish soil and colonized, although it's a British cemetery. So there is that, and I would say it's a really unnecessary violence there. It's really about commemorating events which we call historical, war, sacrifice. But there is an element of disciplinary violence is there. I don't think there are, but this is an diasporic context, right? So immigrants trying to also at the same time make the space in UK as immigrants, which adds another layer of I would say complexity, but also like that respondent who positioned himself with violent people who is admired by English foreign people. This particular respondent is essentially recognizing his whiteness, those are the so I would say the physical support on the left side in Poland. I'm not an expert of that area in Poland. You need to ask much of these external local supports.
Okay, just two final questions. Time is up, so please be brief.
They both hit what my question was, and Wendy from Ohio, my US space. As a woman, from my experience, I was going to add that there is obviously the far left as well. So my question to you is have you done any research? I believe that from my experience, there's a lot of assumptions that the non-US people make about the far left and the far right. But from our experience, I wonder if it is dangerous to make assumptions and what kind of research you have done, or I know your talk was very focused on the impact of the media. That is my question.
Social media.
Media in general. The news channel.
Are actually kind of amplifying, making the day more than they really are. Well, yeah. I think because they are very little in numbers, especially on the Metropolitan University, very small group. They're much more German or Italy than in terms of numbers. But they are. I think that's a good question because at the same time, very often these people are aware of the stigma of this mysterious violent aura around. They want to know. Sometimes it's not much they have, and it's not for me to portray them as sorry guys or who have a difficult childhood. We have to be sorry for them. It's just to explain that there is a sense of elitists in perception of the world. So they feel themselves a unique position, possessive of truth, warriors, fighters, and violent men who basically go to extreme length. And in that sense, I also ask myself the question whether I'm not focusing too much on these very niche people who are no influence, or they not represent for overall process at all. But it's I mean, I have several options in terms of thinking about how to work in the field with them. But the big question is that I don't actually want to doubt that whether they're important or not, because I don't want them to self-prove to anyone. I want to, I mean, sometimes we deal with people who have, claims to know everything about conspiracy theories, and they claim to, I'll be very slowly, very crazy ideas, very odd, and I'm thinking that whether these ideas are always come from somewhere, but they are really seriously. Otherwise, if I began to strongly doubt, obviously I doubt, if that is not bad, but if I start expressing that doubt, that could be understood as a mockery, or as something that propels them to prove that. And this is where sometimes violence comes in. I don't want to, I mean, if someone tells me about being violent and how badass it was, I don't really want to go question that, because at some point he will start, okay, I'll prove it. And either I'll be the target, and it is a concern. I haven't talked about security concern about this thing. But there are, I mean, we haven't started big time publishing yet, but we will. I think it's why wisdom is taking things in proportion. From what we know about violent and terrorists, people who did horrible things and who killed people, very often people who want to prove that they really meant what they said. Yeah, and whatever it's terrorists in Christchurch or really, there was science, and they're talking about doing this thing, and nobody took them seriously. But I think I'm sure that answers the question.
Very final question.
I'll try to be very brief. I'm really interested in how you talk about the escalation of violence versus gun violence, because having worked with the population that you interview from a clinical perspective, psychology, to me, gun violence is more objectifying and impersonal, and the physical violence is often so fear and rage based, and the thinking is so much more rigid and extreme and harder to change. So
I see that as more of a threat than the gun violence. So I was wondering, is it the numbers or the? I was just curious about your perspective on
Okay, it's a good question. I haven't spoken much to people engaged in gun violence. I mean, there are guns there too. Gun violence in Poland is such a rare thing in criminal courts. It's much common in Germany or Czech Republic or in neighboring countries. Obviously, there's a war going on in this country, different order of things. Yes and no, I would say. I would say there was something intimate in the fist fight. When my respondents talk about fist fights, it's very close by. There's a lot of intimate body contact there. No, it sounds a little shocking. There's sweat, there's blood. There's also in the famous Ustawkas, those are the arranged fights in football clans, the clubs. There's that element of making up. Okay, so if someone collapses and requires medical help, then there's like games and stuff. Although, sometimes things escalate. That's why the key rule of engagement in Ustawkas is whether they nice and very basa or just it's very important. And there's so you can imagine the element of trust there between 200 men who have to agree that no one will break it. And of course, some breaks it. But there is that element, I think, and I would, yes, I've done this definitely that since because of physical and particular. In a way, paradoxically, it might be less to be used by ideologists. At the same time, I don't know. I mean, for my experience, and not experience, but from what I hear and the amount of it and the eagerness of it, I was shocked by the eagerness of my respondents to talk about these things, not even prompted sometimes. That's why led me to be, thinking about violence the way the proposal wrote about this unique emotional bond that is created among men, because they participate in something that is irreplaceable, that is unmatched in a lot of other experience. Maybe childbirth, maybe death, or someone can create such emotions. And participating in violence among men, so that's why I think it's more about not maybe the enemy, is the bond created between a band that is connected to each other because they have to watch each other. They basically form one order. That's why. Maybe in that context, it's not it's secondary order, it's kind of like